Sicil found herself standing in the middle of a crumbling village, the air thick with smoke and the sound of explosions echoing in the distance. The ground beneath her feet felt unsteady, as if the very earth trembled with the weight of sorrow. All around her, the remnants of a peaceful life lay in ruins, broken toys, shattered windows, and the charred remains of what once was a home. She noticed two small and fragile figures in the distance clinging to each other amidst the chaos. It was Layla and Ali. Their embrace was desperate, and their faces were streaked with tears as they held on for dear life. Sicil felt her heart shatter at the sight of them. She wanted to reach out and save them, but her feet were rooted to the ground, powerless to move. Suddenly, a flash of light and a burst of gunfire tore through the air. In an instant, the scene shifted. The faces of the two children, once innocent and filled with love, were now hers and Sebastian's. Sicil gasped, her breath hitching as she realized she was no longer an observer. She was in the midst of the nightmare, living it. She could feel Sebastian's arms around her, his heartbeat pounding against hers as if he was trying to fuse their souls together in that final moment. The pain in his eyes mirrored her own, a deep, soul-crushing agony of imminent loss. Before she could react, she felt herself being pulled away. A strong hand yanked her backwards, tearing her away from Sebastian's grip. She turned and saw Ethan, his face set in determination, pulling her away with a force that felt both protective and demanding. His eyes were filled with urgency, as if he believed he was rescuing her from some inevitable doom. Sicil struggled, her heart torn between the man she loved and the man she could never fully let go of. She looked back at Sebastian, his hand still outstretched, his eyes pleading for her to come back. But Ethan's grip was unyielding, pulling her farther and farther away. The scene shifted again, like a flickering nightmare, and suddenly she was no longer with Ethan. She was being yanked away in the opposite direction, this time by Sebastian. His face was twisted with desperation, his fingers digging into her wrist as he pulled her close to him. "Don't leave me," he whispered, his voice hoarse with pain. But as she looked back, she saw Ethan standing alone, his expression a mixture of betrayal and sorrow. He reached out for her, his eyes silently asking why she had left him behind. Sicil felt herself break apart, pulled between the two men, her heart splintering into pieces with every passing second. She tried to say something, to call out to them, but her voice was lost in the chaos. She reached out, trying to hold on to both of them, her fingers slipping through the empty air, and then, as if the universe itself had given up on her, she felt them both start to fade away. Their figures became hazy, like smoke dissolving into the sky, drifting farther and farther from her reach. "No, don't go!" she screamed, her voice breaking, tears streaming down her face. She tried to run after them, but her legs felt heavy as if she was wading through quicksand. She stumbled, reaching out, her fingers grasping at nothing. Sebastian's face was the first to vanish, his sad smile lingering in the air before it too disappeared. Ethan's form wavered next, his eyes filled with unspoken words that were swallowed by the silence. Sicil fell to her knees, her hands clawing at the empty space where they had been, sobs racking her body. She was left alone, the world around her turning dark and cold, the once vibrant village now just a wasteland of memories. She felt an unbearable emptiness, a hollow ache that echoed in the silence. She was alone, lost between two loves, and now she had lost them both. With a gasp, she jolted awake, her body covered in a cold sweat. Her chest heaved as she struggled to breathe, the vividness of the nightmare still clinging to her like a shroud. Her fingers trembled as she touched her face, feeling the wetness of her tears. The room was silent, the darkness pressing in on her, but the pain of that dream, the agony of losing them both, still throbbed in her chest, leaving her feeling more lost and broken than ever before. It was midnight, and Sicil found herself staring at the photos on her bedside table. A picture of her and Sebastian from Uncle George's wedding. They were both caught staring at each other, looking like they didn't have a care in the world. The memory made her smile for a second before her thoughts wandered to Aunt Jasmine. She couldn't help but think of how Aunt Jasmine must be feeling now, waking up every day without Uncle George by her side. They were the perfect couple, always glued together like two pieces of a puzzle. The thought sent a shiver down her spine. The idea of losing someone you loved that much, she couldn't even imagine it. It made her heart ache a little. Trying to shake off the sadness, she took a sip of water, hoping it would calm her mind. As she settled back into bed, she picked up her phone, half expecting nothing but random notifications. But there it was, an unread message from Ethan. "I love you," it simply said. A soft smile spread across her face as she traced her finger over his photo. It was a silly picture he had sent her once, making a goofy face, and yet she felt a warm rush of love. He had been her rock, the reason she'd felt so happy and content these last 5 years. She let out a small sigh of relief, feeling a wave of affection for him. In a world where everything seemed to be shifting, Ethan was her one steady thing, always there to remind her how much she was loved. She decided to sleep again, but it was not her night. Sicil found herself once more in the middle of a vast open field, shrouded in a thick, swirling mist that blurred everything around her. Through the haze, she spotted Sebastian and Ethan standing side by side. Their faces were hard to read, but there was a desperate urgency in their eyes, as if they had defied fate itself just to be there. "Sicil," Sebastian's voice echoed through the mist, his eyes searching hers with a mixture of longing and determination. "I've waited for you so long, but I cannot wait any longer. It is time for you to choose." Ethan's voice joined Sebastian's, his tone gentle yet firm. "I love you, Sicil, but I cannot continue like this. It is not fair to any of us." Sicil's heart pounded in her chest as she struggled to comprehend their words. She reached out, desperate to hold on to them, but they began to fade away, their forms dissipating like smoke in the wind. "No, don't leave me!" she cried out, her voice echoing into the surrounding emptiness. But her pleas fell on deaf ears as Sebastian and Ethan disappeared completely, leaving her alone in the mist. Alone and uncertain, she saw in the distance Ali and Layla being pulled away from their last embrace, the surrounding war engulfing them. Sicil felt a deep sense of loss wash over her. With a heavy heart and a newfound resolve, she knew that she could not keep both Sebastian and Ethan in limbo any longer. She realized, unlike Ali and Layla, she was around the people she loved. All she had to do was to choose a path forward, even if it meant leaving one of them behind. As the mist began to clear, Sicil took a deep breath, steeling herself for the difficult choice ahead. In the stillness of her dream, she knew that whatever she decided would shape the course of her life forever and leave her heart broken, no matter the choice she made. With a heavy sigh, she sat up again in bed, her heart weighed down by the realization that there might be no easy resolution to the tangled web of emotions she found herself in. The truth of her situation hit her like a wave crashing against the shore. Someone's heart would inevitably break, and it might very well be hers along with theirs. The prospect of causing pain to the ones she loved tore at her soul, leaving her feeling lost and uncertain. Gazing out the window at the soft light of dawn filtering through the curtains, Sicil knew that she could not continue to evade the inevitable. She has to confront her feelings head-on, to make a decision that would undoubtedly change the course of her and the lives of those around her.